Why don't anime characters use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Characters like Goku are supposed to be some of the greatest martial artists in all of anime, but you rarely see them do any kind of grappling. And we know from modern martial arts that the greatest martial artists in the world tend to use grappling at some type of high level. Well, apart from the fact that grappling is just not the most cinematic type of martial art to use in a fighting anime, there is actually a practical reason, especially when characters get as strong as Goku is. You see, it's not because Goku can't learn Jiu-Jitsu or any kind of grappling art, because we know from early iterations of Dragon Ball that he does know a little bit of grappling, but it's instead because grappling is kind of useless when you hit the levels of strength that characters in Dragon Ball and other anime series have. See, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, I can tell you that grappling martial arts are heavily dependent on gravity. They utilize a lot of pressure and weight in order to control your opponent and maintain dominant positions. And this is all fine and dandy when you're working at a human level. However, when you've got characters like Goku who can lift tons and tons and tons of weight, and characters who can also fly, a lot of the techniques we use in Jiu-Jitsu and grappling become irrelevant. Take, for example, this position here. It's called mount. You see it all the time in the UFC. It's one of the worst positions to be at in Jiu-Jitsu. On the bottom, I mean. On the top, it's a pretty good place to be. The problem is it's solely dependent on weight. And while characters like Goku might have super strength, they don't have super weight. You see, if somebody's on top of me in this position in a match and I can lift mountains, it's going to be nothing to press him up off of me. And that gets even worse when you add in things like flight. Because if you can for me, take this position right here, guard, where you're on the bottom with your legs around your opponent's waist, and turn it on its side. It should look familiar because that's just mount. So if you're a character in a match like this between Goku and Naruto, and they're fighting with Naruto in the less dominant position, but then you add flying into the mix, suddenly these two characters are just facing each other. Hopefully you can kind of start to see why this doesn't work so much when you add superpowers into the mix. In fact, one of my favorite examples of why things like submission grappling get thrown out the window in these situations is right here in Baki, when Baki Hanma armbars his father, Yujiro. Now, with an armbar, a lot of the reason it works is because your opponent can't move while you're pulling on their arm to attack the joint. You can kind of see here that Yujiro's arm is stuck in this position, keeping him from rotating towards the arm that's being attacked. So what does Yujiro do with his super strength? He takes this arm, rips it through the concrete below, and turns to face Baki, nullifying the armbar. It's why a lot of times when you do see grappling in anime, it's usually at the early levels before the characters gain abilities that can negate these techniques. Because everything from positions to takedowns becomes useless when you can't actually slam your opponent into the ground because, well, they can fly or just lift your weight off of them. So no, it's not that Goku can't do Jiu-Jitsu, it's just there's no reason for him to learn it because it wouldn't be useful against any of the opponents he faces.